and stirring for us. So yeah, welcome. That's why you've got Grace Church Exeter as your sort of Zoom host, because I'm hosting the Zoom. But yeah, Andre, why don't I hand over to you, because then we can then crack on and hear from Todd and start this evening.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's really good to be able to jump on this Zoom this afternoon with you guys. Todd was actually the first one to introduce me to Zoom way back before COVID. I didn't even know this platform existed. No. So yeah, I've known Todd for a few years now, 7 or 8 years. And just to share a little bit of our background from Portugal, it's really good to have lots of leaders and friends joining us this afternoon as well. But basically, we started here in Portugal really being stirred and challenged by reading up on what God was doing around the world, especially the places in the world where church was growing and exploding. And that kind of led us to be really challenged about things like the priesthood of all believers, about effective discipleship of all the members of our church. And in our particular case in Portugal, where churches are limited in resources and smaller in number, we started really sensing that we needed to do something quite different in terms of how we did church to really achieve what God had put on our hearts, to see this nation impacted by the gospel. So the whole thing of raising up leaders and just doing church in a different way, that kind of led us to reading lots of different books, being challenged by lots of different authors. Somewhere in that kind of journey, I bumped into Todd because he was part of the Summer group of churches, still is, I think, and helped develop a lot of the materials I don't know if you guys have heard of from Saturate. And through that, we started having conversations over Zoom, and it's just been a real joy to meet Todd and be blessed by all his experience. One of the things I remember very early on that I was personally encouraged by was just the wealth of experience he has from working with leaders across different nations, different contexts. For us in particular, he served as a missionary in places like in Europe, so Czech Republic and Romania, with a very heavily Catholic background. So for that reason, for me, that was an encouragement. That's kind of an unusual gift, or mix of gifts as well. So, yeah, so for the past few years, we've just had occasional Zooms, and he's really just helped us rethink how we can do church in a more simple, transferable, effective way, in terms of especially thinking around discipleship and missional communities and doing life on life. So I'm sure he'll be talking more about that, but we found it a real blessing. We're still on a journey with it. We're still in this conversation with him. That's why we wanted to include as many of our leaders in this conversation as well, because we're trying to work out how we can apply this in Portugal. But it's a real privilege and a gift to have Todd with us, sharing a little bit from his experience on how to rethink church, I suppose. So over to you, Todd. Thank you for being here.
Over to me. Okay. Well, this good to be with you. Yes, it's my morning. I'm in San Diego, California, very near to the border with Mexico, about 20 minutes. We can see Tijuana. But as Andre said, I lived in Europe for about 15 years. And have been involved with churches all around probably 20 different countries in Europe. So lived in the Czech Republic, lived in Romania, but traveled all around over the last 30 years. So that makes me fairly old, okay? This missional journey for me started 30 years ago in 1994. I moved with a group of people into the eastern side of the Czech Republic, near to Poland and Slovakia, all three of those borders. And you guys know the history. Church was coming out of communism. The idea of mission and missional was not even in their mind, really. They had just come out of survival mode for the previous 50 years. And now we're saying, what do we do? What do we do? How do we function as churches? How do we reach our communities? So they were asking these big questions. And we didn't know. We didn't know either. So those first years were really a lot of experimentation, I would say, of just saying, let's start loving people and then learn how to love people better and see what God wants to do in the middle of all of that as we get involved in people's everyday lives. So you guys have sat through probably hundreds and thousands of hours of training. Okay. So I don't want this to be another information download or some formal teaching time. Okay. This will be as good as you make it. So I'm putting the pressure on you. I'm taking the pressure off me. This will be as good as you make it with how you lead the discussion and ask questions. Okay. Because I'm going to share some ideas from what I've learned over the last 30 years in 30 different countries, but we need to figure out your context. So you're in different contexts, you're in different size cities. Your cities have different histories and different circumstances. Some are richer, some are a little poorer, some are more educated, less educated, some are more ethnically diverse, less ethnically diverse. All of those factors are important. I hope you've learned by now in church leadership that there is no magic bullet, we would say in America. There is, so I'm not giving you a magic bullet. Sorry. I wish there was, but there's not. This isn't a cookie cutter thing. I can't, again, give you a magic plan that is going to mature disciples and reach your cities. Okay? We're going to have to work contextually together during these 3 sessions, but also beyond this. Like Andre said, that's what we talk about when we get on our calls together, periodically. We're talking about the context, talking about the challenges from the context. We're saying, what do you need to adjust? What do you need to do for your context? So I hope all of you right now will just take that posture of saying, I'm in a unique context and we need to figure out these principles or these ideas, these patterns that work in our context. Okay? So please ask questions, please comment, please engage. That's going to help us all. And even if somebody is in a very different context, like Adam, who's in London, is different than Dawlish, where Mark is at, or Exeter, it's different, but it's similar. I told you, I work with hundreds of churches all around the world every month. Surprisingly similar. You could say, really? The guys in South America, similar to England? Or the guys in South Africa, similar to Portugal? The challenges are surprisingly similar. I don't even know. 80% of it is similar, honestly. 20% of it is contextual because we're working with humans. We're working with humans that have human issues and human patterns of way of relating and human heart issues. So much of this is about the heart. Okay, that might surprise you. You might be thinking, Okay, Todd's going to talk strategy, strategy, strategy. A little bit of strategy, a lot of heart. If people's hearts are not gripped by a love for Jesus and a love for people, and then his mission, doesn't matter what strategy you have, doesn't matter what structure you have, honestly. And I work with some of those churches that have a lot of strategy and have a lot of structure, and yet are not very fruitful because the hearts of their people are not yet changed. The hearts of their people are not, again, in love with Jesus and in love with his mission. If you get that figured out, I'll just give you this at the very beginning. If the hearts of your people will fall in love with Jesus and fall in love with his mission, whoa, most everything else will fall into place, honestly. Like it literally is that simple. So we can come back to that, like, okay, how do we help the hearts of our people fall in love with Jesus? Okay, maybe that'll be a question at some point. But again, no magic structure, though we will be talking a bit about structure. Okay, if you looked at what I sent you or what I had Dave send you, okay, two different documents. The first one was called the MC Training Map for the Disciple Making Life. And I want to ask you real quick, if you had to summarize that picture or those ideas in one word, I'm only giving you one word. Okay, don't use two. One word, how would you summarize it? How would you describe it? Yep, there it is. So don't get into the details or the weeds of it, okay? Think big theme here. What's the big theme? As you look at the center, you look at the details around. One word. Somebody take a shot at it.
Interconnection.
Okay. Interconnection. Okay, that's good. That's getting there. Tease that out a little bit. What kind of interconnection?
Relational.
There we go. Okay, you guys were fast to the answer. I hope you see here, but I hope you believe at a heart level, at a convictional level, at a leadership level, at all levels, that God's design for everything is relationship. So an interesting question, do the people in your churches understand that? Would the people in your churches answer that in that way? That God's design for creation is relationship. God's design for the church is relationship. Daily life is meant for relationship with God and with others. Because the reason I'm emphasizing this at the beginning, and we'll keep emphasizing this, is because it's so easy for us in churches to move towards structure. It's this weird thing we do in the church, is we gravitate towards, or we default towards structure as the dominant thing, as the primary thing, versus relationship. And that really matters. Because if structure is motivating you, or if structure is defining your decision making, I think you're often going to get into trouble. You're often going to make less than good decisions, rather than the constant dominating perspective, posture being one of relationship. And I hope you see that. That's what this picture is ultimately meant to describe. Right at the very center is this Trinitarian relationship. And again, that might sound obvious. Okay, Of course, the Trinity's at the center, but surprising number of Christians, surprising number of churches, that's not the case. They don't have good Trinitarian theology. They don't do good foundational Trinitarian teaching and preaching. Okay? But I want to begin from the beginning say God's design and desire for his church and for us as those who are shepherds and leaders of his church, desires for it to be the center thing, the main thing. Okay? That we are in this daily, hourly, moment by moment abiding dependence upon the Father and the Son and his Spirit. It's gonna affect everything if we can get that grounded in our people. Okay, this Trinitarian relationship. But then if you look around that centerpiece, again, the story of God or the story of the Bible, again, all those little figures, pictures you see are just describing a relationship, God's relationship with his creation. Okay, and then those 4 questions about who is God and what has he done and who am I and how do I live, it's just all relational answers. Who is God? He's a relational God, obviously, from the garden, from day 1, Genesis 1, right? One of my favorite ideas or pictures, relational pictures we see in Genesis is that it says God walked and related in the garden with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day. Isn't that just an amazing picture? There was this intimate, daily abiding, but spending time together, walking together in the cool of the day in the garden. Like that's literally when you think of even how you're going to define discipleship, like I think that's got to be part of it. What's the goal for our people in our churches? To see them live their daily lives walking with God in that way, communicating with God in that way, dependent upon God in that way, at peace with God in that way, walking with God in the cool of the day. You think that might not change how people function at work? Wow. Think that might not change how people go to school, live in their neighborhood, go to the market, raise their kids, go to the park? If there was that kind of consistent abiding and living life with God. Okay, so I'm preaching a little bit to you here at the beginning, so sorry about that. But it's easy to, again, our tendency is just to move beyond the most important things to like strategies and structures and systems and activity programs, right? That's just it's just where we go as leaders and as people in the church. We need a bit of that. We need a bit of strategy. We need a bit of structure. We need to plan some things. Okay. We need some of that. Okay. Gardens need cared for and need, regular watering. And so gardens need that. But this relational posture, and again, even defining discipleship in that way. So often, you guys know how, you guys tell me, can you take that picture down now, Dave? I want to look at everybody's faces. I prefer faces over structures that I created. But how would most people, maybe not you, how would most people define discipleship? Again, in a few words or a few ideas. What would be at the center of discipleship?
Teaching
Yeah.
people to obey Jesus.
Okay. Teaching people, and teaching what?
Often it's formal teaching, and it's
Good.
a program, and it's kind
Good.
of cognitive.
Good. All of that. Teaching, it's formal, it's cognitive. I wanted you to say one more word: information. It's information. We've just got to get the right information in people, and then they'll be okay, and they'll mature, and they'll do Jesus things, right? But wouldn't you agree our problem in the church, at least for the last 100 years, has been our approach to discipleship has not been primarily relational and relationship. It has primarily been informational and program. What's the program to deliver the information? Anybody else want to comment on that?
I think that might have been the trend, but discipleship has something to do with walking with Jesus and asking him to show us how to do the things he did.
Good. Yes, I hope that's becoming more and more true. In some places it is, in some pockets that I see where I work around the world, whether it's South Africa or South America. But I can tell you still an awful lot of churches I work with. And these are churches in good networks and good denominations, leaders coming out of good seminaries. The Anglican Seminary in Santiago, Chile. It's one of the best, it's one of the better, it's considered one of the better seminaries in Latin America. Very cognitive, very informational, very programmatic. That's how they are teaching these seminarians. That's how you lead a church. You preach and teach. I'm a Bible guy. I went to Bible school, seminary. I've got a master's degree. I've got all that. So don't hear that I'm not a Bible guy. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. Yes, do we need to preach and teach well? Absolutely. Absolutely. Faithful to the scriptures. But Miguel, I like what you shared, how I heard what you said. It's a relational, I'll use the word abiding, just because that's a good scriptural word from John. Okay, abiding, hour by hour, day by day, abiding, relating, communicating with Jesus, asking him, which way should I go and how should I do that and who should I love and what's it look like for our church to serve our community? This abiding. Okay. Why is that so hard for us, at least as Western Christians? How did we get here? How, like, it seems like when you read the New Testament and you read the Gospels and you look at the ways of Jesus, seems pretty clear, seems pretty obvious, right? Jesus just spent a lot of time in relationship, actually around the table. I'll come to that eventually. I will rant about that for a little while with you, that Jesus' primary mode of discipleship and mission was around the table, actually. It's good news. Food was at the center. Who needs a different strategy than that? It's like, if that was Jesus' strategy, I'm all in. Okay. We're at the table, we get to enjoy food, and we invest in each other. Okay. But what are the barriers, or how did we get more towards a programmatic, cognitive, informational approach in our churches?
Is it, well, maybe it's easier. Maybe it's just easier to tell people
Good.
what to do and let
Good.
them get on with it.
Thanks for
And-
being
and also-
honest. Thanks
I
for
think
being
it's
honest.
easier to measure. We like to measure it. You
Good.
can measure it. Tick a box. Finish
Good.
a program. You can
Good.
measure it.
Good. Easier, more controllable, easier to measure, safer.
It's not just in the church, though, is it? I mean, I think we value university education more than we value somebody who does an on-the-job apprenticeship and rises up through a company in that way.
Good word. Yep. Yep. Again, informational versus experiential. One way we could describe it. Informational versus relational.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference in spiritual information and spiritual formation. And probably the biggest factor is time. You think of something being formed versus transfer of information. And so we have to take time with people. But I think the hardest thing is ministers of the gospel is that we're going to change. And we have to confess that we don't always want to change if we're honest with ourselves, because it's going to stretch us and break us and sanctify us. So if I take time to disciple somebody, I know that the Holy Spirit's in that meeting. He's going to disciple me as well. And I can't avoid.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. I'd say it like this. This relational way of living and being the church and making disciples is hard and messy. Actually, it's actually hard and messy. So I think the other Mark Waterfield said, we like it. Be honest. Many churches, church leaders, many Christians, many small group leaders, safe, comfortable, fast, limited investment. Like, if I can tick the box, if I can knock it out in 2 hours a week and get on with my family and get on with my football, and then that's good enough. But man, that's not what we see in the New Testament. It's not what we see in the Gospels. Long, fairly slow, took Jesus some years. So long process, fairly slow, very messy. You think of all the ups and downs they went through, right? Ups and downs, good and bad, easy and hard, ups and downs, man. That's discipleship. So this is going to sound like bad news to you probably, but I tell a lot of churches, if you're not experiencing mess in your church, mess around you, you're probably not making disciples. You should invite the mess. You should desire the mess. It's in the mess that lives change. As we get into hard things, difficulties in marriage and difficulties in parenting and difficulties in sexuality and difficulties in finances and difficulties in all those human things, okay? That's where the change happens. When people make bad choices and you talk about it and you speak the truth of the gospel into it, like, that's how habits change, and that's how things change, again, with God's help. but our role in it is to be truth speakers into the mess. But see, we so avoid the mess in our churches. We actually structure our churches often to avoid mess. And then we wonder why our people are not very motivated, or not very mature, or not very, okay? Because we actually organize our churches to avoid that, to limit that. So we can come back to any of this, okay? That's the other thing. We're going to talk about a lot of different ideas. Please circle back around if you're like, you moved on and I want to go back to that point. Feel free to do that, please, okay? But I am going to move us on a little bit. Okay, we can talk about this probably for another hour. But I sent you a second document, which I'm going to propose or encourage to say, there are some structural things, some organizational things we can do to overcome this. Everything we're talking about, we need to overcome, okay? We can organize our churches in such a way to make them highly relational, because that is the goal, right? Highly relational, highly intentional, inviting the mess. Highly relational, highly intentional, inviting the mess. Because in the mess, in the challenges of life, is where the greatest spiritual growth often happens, okay? So I'm just going to propose, you saw it in the document, you didn't read it, go back, it'll take you no more than 5 minutes to read it, but 3 simple structures. But they're really, I'd rather than calling it a structure, I'd rather call it a relational environment. Again, because relationship is the goal. Relationship is the thing we're called to, okay? Relationship with God, relationship with others as the church, relationship with the lost. Like, that's it. That's life. Are those 3 layers of relationship that we're called to. Relationship with God as Father, Son, and Spirit. I said Trinitarian relationship. Relationship with the church as family. And we will need to come back to that. It's not church as an organization, or church as a club, or church as a something else. It's church as family. That's our identity. That's our calling. Okay. Church as family. And then with the lost that we are sent to, and we're sent to them every single day. Okay. That's another thing. That's another thing when you start thinking through the relational lens. It's like, oh, well, the relationships are all around me every day. Whether I go to work or school or the market or the beach or the park or the football pitch, it doesn't matter. Relationships are all around me every day. So actually, God desires for the people in our churches not to live a compartmentalized life where mission happens at certain specific times and places, but where mission is everywhere all the time, every day. As soon as we roll out of bed in the morning, we're on mission. Not kidding. Roll out of bed, because it's rooted in our identity. It's who we are as disciples. We are sent ones, missionaries, ambassadors, witnesses. You know all those things. But see, many Christians, most Christians, probably a high percentage of the Christians in your churches, see that as something they do when you tell them to, or when you organize it for them, right? Man, when's Ben gonna organize another missions thing for us? When's Luis gonna do that next missions thing? When's Pete gonna plan that next mission opportunity? Right? It's how most Christian, but we've discipled them in that way, to expect that and to live like that, rather than saying, no, when you roll out of bed in the morning, whatever you're doing today, you're on mission. You're sent. You're a witness, ambassador, missionary. So you go to school today, you're going there as a missionary. Going to work today, you go there as a missionary. You're going to get groceries, you go there as a missionary. Taking your kids to the park, you go to there as a missionary. Gonna go watch some good football, you go there as a missionary. Gonna go ride your bike, walk the dog, you go there as a missionary. You do that as a missionary. Very different way of thinking, living, praying, speaking. So you can imagine, because many Christians don't do that, so in their normal day, they go to work and they just work their job. They're not praying much for anybody there, right? They're not praying for coworkers. They're not praying for customers. They're not praying for their boss. They're not looking for opportunities to speak to customers, speak to their coworkers, speak to their boss, because they're not thinking, oh, I'm a missionary here. I'm a missionary right now. Or people that go to school, our kids go to school or go to uni. They just go to class, they sit there, they listen to math or whatever the subject is, and they go home. They're not walking to class thinking, I'm on mission, I'm a missionary. I'm on mission right now. My math class is actually a mission field because 95% of them don't know Jesus. It doesn't matter that we're talking about math. My primary identity is a missionary. It's not as a math person or an architecture person or a business person. My primary identity is as a missionary. So as I go to class today, I go there sent by Jesus to bring his influence and to bring his truth wherever I go. See how this is limiting our churches, because most of our people do not live their daily lives that way. But you can imagine already in my short little rant here, the difference it will make if your people would begin to live their daily lives that way. Wow. The difference. You think their workplaces might not change? They're there 7 or 8 hours a day. 7 or 8, that's a long time. That's a long time to potentially be on mission. 7 or 8 hours a day at your workplace, or 3, 4, 5 hours at school, 6 hours at school. Or we're going to the park, and yes, we're going to play with our kids and we're going to have fun and we're going to do all that, but there are lost moms and dads at the park with their kids. They're lost. They're far from Jesus. We can do both. We can go to the park and we can have fun and we can love our kids, but we can also love others and be on mission at the park. I already threw this out there quick, but walking your dog, that might sound like this. What are you talking about, walking your dog? Literally, I can tell you quite a few stories of people walking their dog with intentionality in their neighborhood, and how it led to incredible conversations, incredible opportunities with their neighbors that eventually led to Jesus. Walking their dog. It started with walking their dog. Okay. So Mark Jones just commented in the chat. Yeah. I've said it a few times. If we can ground people increasingly in their identity as disciples who live together in the church like family, and then go together outside the church like missionaries, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. It'll change your churches. It'll change many things. But again, rooted in identity, which is that means those are things that are true of me all the time, whether I feel like it or not. Those are things that are true of me, that I'm called to, that Jesus desires for me. whether my pastor or my church organizes it or not. It's who I am. It's who Jesus has saved me to be. He's saved me to be his family on his mission. It's my identity. So now everywhere I go in light of my identity. It's not a program. It's not a method. It's not a strategy. It's identity. It's who I am. It's now in my eternal DNA. It's in my blood. It's in my bones. It's forever. It's who I am as a disciple of Jesus. I'm a son or daughter. I'm adopted son or daughter that's now a child in the family, but sent now to make more disciples, to care for the family inside the church, and to make more disciples and be on mission outside the church. Okay? Identity, identity, identity. So back to the three structures. Those three structures, again, I'm going to get better description as a relational environment. I think we need some form of these three. Most churches have 1.5. Most churches have 1.5 of the three. Okay. What are those three? What are those three relational environments? Okay. Sundays, big gathering of the church. Okay. We need that. Okay. I'm not not a cell church, micro church proponent. Okay. That's not me. I believe in the larger gathering of the church. So if you want to call them house churches, I believe ideally they would be networked house churches or micro churches, whatever language you like, but networked, meaning they meet with some consistency to gain the benefit of the larger family gathering. Again, it's family. It's not a meeting. It's not a program. It's a family reunion. Sunday morning or Saturday night, whenever you gather, what a beautiful picture for that to be a family reunion. The families coming together to tell stories and learn and worship, go to the table and take communion, pray. It's just a beautiful picture of the larger family as a family reunion. Okay, we need it. Certain things, and this is what I said in my document, certain things are accomplished there that cannot be accomplished in smaller gatherings. They just can't. It's relational dynamics. Certain things happen when you're together with a larger gathering of people. You're encouraged differently. I think you learn differently. It's different, it's a different, when you pray with a larger group of people versus a smaller group of people, it's different. You hear things differently. You receive things differently. When you worship with a larger group of people versus a small group of people, it's different. Okay. Especially if people don't sing very well. Okay. It's kind of hard in a small group. You know how awkward it can be when a small group tries to do a good worship time. There's only two good voices and 10 clunkers. Okay, so we need the larger gathering. Okay, hopefully you can say amen to that. Okay, but then the reason I said 1.5, let me qualify. What did he mean by the half? Why the half? Because at the missional community or gospel community or home group, life group level, that size of 8 to 14 people, and we'll be talking much more about that. So if you like details and we'll get to those. Okay, we'll get to those, I promise. But I'm just going to say 8 to 14, life group, home group, small group, missional community, whatever you call it, doesn't matter. Okay, I believe those groups need to have 3 guiding priorities. 1.5 of those are usually missing. We've already said our tendency is towards information, cognitive, right? Education. That's true with most small groups in most churches. They exist for education. It's a smaller educational environment, right? To teach, to discuss, but it's informational. So highly educational, informational, Bible study, Bible discussion, sermon-based discussion. It's that, and usually a little bit of fellowship, a little dessert, a little bit of, a little bit of interaction, friendly, often fairly superficial. How's everybody doing? How was your week? How's work going? How'd your Premier League team do this week? Okay. Sorry, you guys are in Portugal. Sorry about that. Okay. You're not Premier League guys. But that's the 1.5, the educational piece and a little bit of fellowship. That 8 to 14 size small group, home group, life group, missional community, I believe need 3 guiding values of Bible. So there is the educational piece, but family versus fellowship. Very, 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 very different. Did I say that enough? Did I emphasize that was 4 varies? Okay. Family versus fellowship, very different. And again, I talk with hundreds and hundreds of small group leaders, so I'm basing this on a lot of experience, okay? This isn't just Todd's opinion, okay? Small group leaders all around the world tell me this. They admit it, okay? That the quality, the depth of relationship between the people in their small groups is not very deep. The people in their small groups are not committed to each other like family. They go to small group. They go to home group. It's part of the program. It's a meeting they go to a couple hours a week. That's very different than a group of people that are committed to each other like family. Right? 4 varies. It's very, 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 very different. So we've got to push towards family. Again, why? Because it's who we are as the people of God. We are not an organization, everybody. We are family. Family. You've got to organize your churches like family. Lead them like family. Talk about things like family. Organize your schedules like family. What does that mean practically? Again, we'll get into a lot of the practicalities. But for one, it means they're going to need to spend much more time together than they're currently spending. Tell me quick, 4 or 5 of you, just 1 or 2 words. What's a good family do together on a regular basis?
They eat.
They eat. Amen. Around the table. Good families eat together. Shocking number of churches I work with all around the world rarely eat together. Rarely eat together. Definitely with not any consistency. Okay? So I'll just get that out there right now. What else do good families do besides eating?
Laugh. Laugh.
Say it again.
Laugh. Have a joke.
Laugh.
Laugh. Take the mickey out of each other.
Okay, good. Care. Genuine, deep care for the emotional, physical, relational, financial needs of each other. Good. What else? Good families.
They argue like cat and dog.
Awesome. Awesome. They argue. Again, if there's not some mess, if there's not some conflict, if there's not some disagreement, that should be a sign, actually, that your groups are not very healthy. It's like, wait a second, that seems like the opposite. If our groups are fighting and disagreeing and Doesn't that make them unhealthy? Nope, opposite. Opposite. Okay, deep, genuine, authentic communication. That's what's behind the fighting. Okay, honest, vulnerable, authentic communication. Good. One or two more things.
That authentic communication is surely only positive if you realize your family.
Amen. Amen.
It's not a good sign if they don't realize their family.
Amen. What a amazing teachable moment to consistently reinforce that, Miguel. So I love you just made that connection. Yes. Say, okay, everybody, the situation's pretty emotional right now. How's a good family respond to disagreeable, emotional moments? What's grace look like right now? What's patience look like right now? What's kind words look like right now? What's truth telling look like right now? Let's talk about that.
One good example of that was in Porto, or sorry, Penafiel. Saw the shores and the father son pray over each other in this beautiful moment. And so just the idea of family blessing and good families multiply. And Miguel prayed over Andrew. There's this sending aspect of a godly father wants to send, bless, lay hands on. And many people haven't experienced that, so they could heal as they experience that in the church, to be launched into something prayed over and blessed. So families should bless each other. They should hear those words, and families should commission each other, for sure. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, all those little bits of communication you just described, Adam, is familial, family-like. Words of encouragement and blessing from a father. Wow. So needed in our world today. I talk with a lot of leaders, and these are leaders, these are some of our best and brightest, but there's just a high percentage that have broken, difficult dad stories. Broken relationships with their fathers that left, or fathers that abused, or fathers that were angry, fathers that were drunk, fathers. So, man, you think about so many males, and I believe this is globally true, because again, I ask and that's what I hear. So many males, boys, men and boys, have had broken dad experiences. So that's part of the discipleship work for us, right? Is that reparenting, I call it. There's a huge amount of reparenting, I believe we're called to. Huge amount of reparenting, because so many, and this isn't just, it is men and boys, but women too. They just were not parented well. Even if they grew up in a family or a household where their parents stayed together, they still were not parented well. Their parents did not lead them to Jesus. Their parents did not model abiding with Jesus. Their parents did not, there's so many things their parents didn't do for them or help them with or disciple them into. So part of the discipling work is this reparenting. And I've already talked, I want to take us back to something I said a little bit ago, this idea of discipleship and mission around the table. At the table, around meals. More than ever, People don't know how to do that in our world. People are not growing up in households where they're consistently around the table. And if they are around the table, they're probably looking at their phones rather than looking at each other. They're probably eating mostly in silence than having intentional conversations around the table. So they're not learning intentional conversation around a meal, because fewer and fewer, less and less is that happening in our world. And it's true all over the world. So again, if we're going to be churches that make mature disciples and live on mission around the table, we're going to have to reparent. We're going to have to help our people even know how to go to the table and be intentional at the table. Does that make sense? Okay.
Todd, can I just ask on
Yes.
that? Obviously, you're talking about the 1.5 out of 3, sort of the sort of family side of it. I guess the reality is that what you've just described takes time, like lots of time, and 1 or 2 people can't do that for everybody. So that rethinking of we're in this together, we're sharing this together, we're a family, where there might be sometimes I need the support and someone else is going to have to do that, and those kind of things. So it's much less of a this is your leader who does everything model, much more releasing everyone to be part of a family. And
Yep.
I'm guessing that's a bit of a shift from
Good.
how things
Good.
have been, maybe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A good family shares responsibility. Okay. I've got 5 kids. My 9-year-old has appropriate responsibility in the family. He's got to take out the garbage sometimes. He's got to pick up the sports equipment in the driveway sometimes. He's got appropriate responsibility for the family. I've got a 14-year-old daughter. She's got appropriate responsibility for the family. It's shared responsibility. That's what good families do. So your small groups, home groups, life groups, that just has to become part of how they function. It's not 1 or 2 people leading a Bible study. See, that's the half. That's kind of historically how most churches have functioned with their small group structure. You get a leader, maybe 2 leaders, and they lead some kind of teaching moment and dessert for 90 minutes, and everybody goes home. That's just so kind of the opposite, kind of the opposite of family, okay? And the opposite of, hey, everybody's playing a role here. Everybody's sharing responsibility. It's okay if you're a baby Christian. You're going to have baby Christian responsibility. You're not just coming along. You're not just coming along to consume. Okay? We're going to give you appropriate responsibility as a baby Christian. Been a Christian for 6 months? Great. Help with this. Share something from what God's teaching you. Okay? You've been a Christian 2 years? Okay. We'll give you that responsibility. You've been a Christian 5 years? Okay. We'll give you that responsibility. Appropriate responsibility. That's how people, so many churches I work with complain about the lack of leaders in their churches. Oh, we can't do this. We don't have enough leaders. We can't start new groups. We don't have enough group leaders. And it's like, well, what's your pipeline, or how are you developing people into those potential roles? Well, we're not. What do you mean? What do you mean, what's our pipeline? We don't really have a pipeline. And then you wonder why you're lacking servants, why you're lacking helpers, why you're lacking leaders. Okay? Rather than rather than calling people leaders all the time, one of the things we did years ago, we started adding the term servant leader to it. I think it's a better, more appropriate biblical term. And you could even drop the leader part of it and just saying, these are our small group servants, okay? Because everybody's a servant. Again, that's part of our identity. And what are you really doing as you lead a small group to live like family on mission? It's servant work. Does that make sense? Like, we've got to all have the posture of servants towards each other as family. And then as we go together, as we go on mission, we actually go as servant missionaries. And so how do we get more people taking more responsibility? By creating the space for it. But again, it goes back to, if you're functioning in your small groups like family, it naturally creates the context for it. Because that's just the expectation. Oh, more people are going to need to help for this to be a healthy family. More people are going to need to pitch in if this is going to have strength and capacity. More people helping, more people serving, more people sharing, more people. And then every little bit they do matures them. It's like, how do people mature? How do people grow? Every little experiential thing they help with, every little experiential thing they do, helping with hospitality, helping before you share a meal, helping afterwards as you clean up the meal or as you clean up the living room. Every little experiential part of it matures people. I see that so clearly with my kids. It's such a parenting principle, right? Such a parenting principle. Every little thing my kids do to help and serve and share grows them, matures them, builds on the next thing. Okay? Okay, that's the second relational environment, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that, so don't worry. Third relational environment. This is what's lacking in most churches. Is the smaller relational commitment. Again, don't hear structure, don't hear program, don't hear meeting, hear relational commitment. It's called, we call them DNA groups. Again, better to say DNA relationships. It's a relational commitment between 3 or 4 people. And I would say committed to they're committed to the flourishing of each other. Could not every human on the planet use some of that? Right? Every person on the planet could use 2 or 3 other people that are committed to their flourishing, that are thoughtful about their life, that are prayerful about things going on. Rather than just showing up at church, talking superficially, maybe sharing a little hard thing going on here and there. But these DNA groups are a consistent environment, a consistent opportunity to go to the deepest places of each other's stories. I was in a DNA conversation last Wednesday night. We were out at a restaurant, around a table, around food. And I had a 32-year-old man sharing very difficult, very deep things from his story. He cheated on his wife. He had an affair. He was telling us about it. was talking about it. Where is, if we don't have these DNA kind of relationships and this DNA opportunity regularly, where is that going to happen in your church? Honest. Is that going to happen on a Sunday morning? No, there's not. It's not possible. Is that going to happen in a small group of 12 adults with 7 women present and 6 children around? Is that going to happen there? Is somebody going to be sharing about the affair, how it almost led to divorce, how they're trying to bring healing? How? No, it's not. And that's why, unfortunately, it doesn't happen in the lives of most people in most churches, because there's not the relation, there's not the space for it, there's not the opportunity for it. That's why we need DNA. And it's not just for the crises like a marital affair. It's also, man, all of us need regular encouragement, right? We just need a few people consistently saying, keep going, sister. Keep going, brother. Keep going with Jesus. Keep walking with Jesus. Keep leading your family. Keep loving your wife. Keep making good financial decisions. Keep pursuing purity. Keep going. Don't we all need that? Doesn't every person in your church need that? I believe they do. I believe it's not going to happen in most cases if you don't create some kind of opportunity like I'm describing here. These DNA commitments, these DNA quality relationships. It's 3 or 4 people, and I believe it can be accomplished, this quality, this depth, this accountability. I believe it can be accomplished by meeting just two times in a month. But listen to this is an important thing. Because it's connected to your small groups, it's not a separate thing. It's not, I have my small group over here, and then I've got this DNA thing over here additionally. No, it's integrated. It's complementary. So just use Dave Rogers as an example right now, okay? We'll say Dave's leading a small group, home group, with 12 adults, 6 children, okay? That's their current dynamic in their home group. 12 adults, 6 children. They're going to look at those, and we're going to say, oh, it looks like we have 5 men and 7 women in our home group. So for now, we're actually going to form those 5 men. You could go a couple different ways. You could go 2 men's DNAs with 3 men and 2 men. But actually, I don't like that as much as going a DNA with 5 men for now, until you add 1 or 2 more men and you can multiply it. But for now, we're going to go 1 men's DNA with Dave and 4 other men. And then they've got 7 women in that home group. They're actually going to organize them into 2 women's DNAs, 4 women in one, 3 women in the other. And in addition to all the family meals and missional activity they do together as a home group, they're going to find 2 times in a month. Because my home group has a lot of children, our DNAs have to meet fairly late at night. That's because we try to be good parents and we try to get the children down in a normal rhythm. And so our DNAs meet from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. On a Wednesday night. That's when we DNA. But we rotate. So the women will do the first and third Wednesdays, and the men will be home being good dads, putting the kids down. And then we'll Flip that. The second and fourth Wednesdays, the men are DNAing and the women are home, being good moms, putting the kids down. Okay. But that provides this regular opportunity to be deep into each other's lives. What's going on in each other's marriages, parenting, work, finances, sexuality. One of the guys in my DNA, we had the one man last week talk about the affair, and we tried to speak gospel. We tried to encourage him and speak gospel truth into the healing of his marriage. Okay, so that was going on. But then with the second man, he was honest because we have this kind of commitment to each other, and he talked about his struggle with porn. And it's been something going on for like 15 years. Okay. But he's able to talk about it. He knows we're in it with him. We're committed to him. We're helping him. We're praying for him. We're encouraging him to pursue purity, to set good boundaries so that he can gain victory over this struggle with porn. Okay. Where is that going to happen if we don't have these regular opportunities to go to those more vulnerable places? Okay. You see why this DNA, these smaller relational commitments are so critical in all of this. Okay. So anyway, that's enough. I've described these three essential structures: larger Sunday gathering, home group, life group, whatever you call your 8 to 14, and then this DNA. But I think that those three relational environments can work together in a very powerful, complementary way to both accomplish the ongoing biblical education. We said that was one priority. The family commitment, this family identity, and then the missional, the missionary, the on mission together. What do you think? Or what questions do you have?
Todd, I've got a question. If you're in a missional group and for whatever reason, some of the men or women choose not to want to engage with it or can't engage with it time-wise, how does that work? Are they still welcome in the missional group if they're not DNA, or is it all or nothing for you guys?
Definitely not all or nothing. No, it's never. It's always a journey. So, but we're going to invite and we're going to call them to deeper levels of commitment and investment, if that makes sense. But no, yeah, you'll get people that come around to the missional community twice a month, no DNA, come around twice a month for a season. But then again, they're hearing the stories and they're seeing what's going on there. And often they get drawn more into it. They become more consistent. They hear the DNA stories and it's like, wow, I could use some of that. Could I get in one of those? Could you create space in one of those for me? Because I need that. But Ben, part of this, and this is on you as a leader in a church, is you control a lot of the expectations. Be honest. Okay? Your hands aren't tied in most cases. You control the expectations. You're responsible, you and your elders or your whatever your leader, your board, your leadership structure, you set the culture of the church. So churches I work with, I tell them, if you make these things optional, people will participate in an optional way. If you set these things as an expectation based on what we said at the beginning of this call, based on our identity, based on who they are as disciples of Jesus, if they're hearing that from you week in and week out in some form, from the pulpit, from your social media communication, you set that culture. It's like, oh, to be part of Ben's church looks like this. Sunday's important, and these community groups are important, and these DNA groups are important, and that's what it looks like to be part of this church family. We've set that culture, we've set that expectation. Okay. I've got certain expectations for my 5 kids. There's many things that are not optional for them. Okay. It's like, to be part of the Moore family, you're going to do your chores every Saturday morning. Sorry, it's not optional. Okay. Saturday morning chores or after dinner chores. We've got a chore chart on our refrigerator that's got their daily chores and their weekend chores. That's how the Moore family functions.
It functions in a Martin household like that as well, but we have to bribe them with money. So
okay. Yeah, you've got your little your little carrots you put out there for them. But,
God, can I ask you a question?
But does that make sense in the church, setting clear expectations?
Yeah, absolutely.
And saying,
yeah, it
hey,
does.
We as Grace Church in Exeter, this is who we are as a church family.
Yeah.
We believe these things are essential, not optional. Dave, I think those words should come out of your mouth fairly consistently to say, this is how we believe this is how our family wants and needs to function to be healthy. If we just throw out some good options and let you choose whatever you like, whatever fits your schedule, wow, that's guaranteed. That's guaranteed to create problems. Similarly, if I threw out options to my kids and let them choose which they like and which they don't like, which they're going to make time for, wow, our family would be chaos. Just like too many churches are chaotic and under-resourced and under-committed and not enough servant leaders, because too many things are put out there as optional. It doesn't seem like that was the way of Jesus. It seems like the way of Jesus was like, lay down your life, lay down your nets, take up your cross, become an apprentice with me at the center of your life. Okay. So expectation versus option. Please consider it.
Todd, I think how you lead that is going to be massively important, isn't it? If you can paint a picture of why and the what and the scripture behind that, but this whole thing of the journey of discipleship, it makes such a difference. And as you said, some people who opt out see the difference and then opt in because they've seen how that changes. And we've separately from even our conversations with you, Todd, we came to the sort of the 3 areas of relational environments ourselves, with Sundays, community groups, and formation groups.
Good.
But you paint a picture of the difference it makes, and you do hear the stories of real nitty-gritty life stuff happens in the formation groups, but it does overspill into the community groups, and then that does overspill into our big gatherings all the time. And then you just, the language you use of expectation, if you make it optional, people opt out. But there's also that if you enforce it in an unhelpful way, people opt out as well. And so it is important there is quite nuanced in how you do that. I think particularly in the Western culture where people, let's be honest, don't always like to be told what to do. They want to make that decision themselves. And so you're constantly trying to paint the picture of why this is better, why this is going to bless them, why this is going to impact the church and the community. And then when you paint the picture and people buy into it, you're not twisting arms. You just sort of, the momentum grows, doesn't it? And you're like, wow, how did we get here?
Good.
So yeah, I think
good.
Enforced and optional, either side don't work, but somewhere balance does, in my experience. But other people have different experiences.
Good. Yeah, well said, Dave. I think, again, week in and week out from the pulpit and from our communication needs to be gospel motivation and family identity. And, that's the why. And it's a very different way of putting it, basically inviting people into it. Again, inviting people into family, living like family, committing like family, sacrificing like family. It's a very different way of talking about it, rather than come serve, come volunteer, come be part of this program, come participate in the series of meetings. Like, all of that feels exhausting compared to come be part of a supportive, encouraging family that's enjoying each other like family and eating and playing and, celebrating together like family, and then being intentional with lost people outside the church.
That's very good.
God, do you invite people to your DNA group specifically? Oh, I'm thinking this is just a sort of practical question, observation, how you do it. So you've got the family-orientated group, and everyone's family. You're promoting family, and then in addition, you've got a different group that you call DNA, and they're interrelated. But it's, when I'm thinking, how can I put it? When I'm thinking family, and there are times when I want a sort of more in-depth conversation over a specific subject. The fact that family exists enables me to do that. So I talk to someone about that, right? It's not an organized group every other week of 4 special people from the family. It just sort of crops up, right? So I'm discipling one-on-one from within a family context, but what I've not organized is a whole separate group to do that. And I'm just sort of wondering time constraints and so on. How does that work?
Good. Yep, great question. So again, remember, the DNA relationships are an extension of the small group. Okay. So again, it's not part of the beauty of that is if you're living a lot of life together with your small group, then when you do meet as DNA, just as the men, just as the women, you've got all this life experience together. Like, you're seeing each other's lives, you're seeing each other's marriages, you're seeing each other's parenting. Does that make sense? But so the two complement so well. But Miguel, I think what I hear in your question, if we can create this way of relating as family in a small group that extends to DNA, lots of other spontaneous things are going to happen, which is what you're describing. Again, it's one of the benefits of it. Many I was talking with a pastor yesterday. I said, if these three relational environments are regularly working together, guess what? Many other things are going to grow out of it. Many unexpected things, many spontaneous things, many other beautiful things, because you've created these regular, intentional relational spaces. So yes, Miguel, many one-on-one conversations are going to grow out of this. Could be before a small group meal night, could be after, it could be at the park, could be at the birthday party or the anniversary party, could be before DNA or after DNA, lots of other times, because you've created the expectation. This is how we support each other. This is how we communicate. This is how we maintain accountability. This is how we invite prayer into our life. You've created this kind of relational expectation with these other relational spaces that then grows into even more relational opportunity. It's part of the beauty of it. Somebody, Rob, asked, do you have DNA groups as a pair of couples? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So no, there's no couple DNAs, though if you want to add that variation, I'm all for doing that in addition to this. But again, if you read the little bit that I sent you, there's a whole lot of things that women are not going to talk about ever, which they shouldn't if men are present. There's a whole lot of things that men are never going to talk about ever and shouldn't with women present. I told you the DNA conversation I had last week. That man sharing about the marital affair, he is never going to talk about that in that way if there are women present. Never, ever. And appropriately shouldn't. But it was appropriate, necessary, essential for him to talk with us about it. Last week, because he was vulnerable and because we spoke truth to him and prayed for him, it brought a level of healing. It brought a level of growth. He actually made progress, and I believe was able to love his wife better this week because of that DNA experience. But that conversation was a hard conversation. You're only having that he's not having that conversation if there's 7 or 8 men present, right? Probably not. No way. But he was willing to have that conversation between the 3 of us. Same thing with women. My wife and her women's DNA, they have amazing conversations. Deep, vulnerable, honest conversations. Every time they meet, I have a hard time getting her to come home. I'm not kidding. It's so good. It's so life-giving. Sometimes I have to text her at like 10:30 p.m. and I'll say, hey, you got an early morning tomorrow. You got to come home. Like, you can't stay out another hour with your DNA ladies. Okay? It's that good. It's that life-giving.
Can I ask, so I've got to run in a moment, but just in terms of at that DNA level, the need for some degree of chemistry, I suppose, for want of a better word, but and what of friendship in this? I think so. Where my wife has this, I have that. It would be really with deep friends who they have a lot of chemistry with. How can you just create, I don't know, can you just create that out of people in a
Good.
community group where there's a lot of diversity
Good,
in
good.
age and whatever else?
Yep, good, very good question. Yep, your friends are your friends. That's why they're your friends. You know, there's some chemistry there, and friends do friends things. So that's always going to be the case. But again, Joe, we're talking about family, and it's a real thing. Like it's not like this made up concept. Biblically, it's biblically true that those people in your church are family. They're literally your brothers and sisters for eternity. It's a deeply rooted biblical truth. Therefore, Joe, where chemistry might be lacking in the beginning, chemistry will come when you commit and relate in this way, because it's guaranteed, it's eternal. Jesus actually died for that. He died to create the potential for us to be sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. Like, it's that significant, okay? So, yeah, you'll get into these DNA relationships and it's like, wow, we're quite different. But Joe, listen to this. When we start a new DNA, 3 people, 4 people, we will have each person share the 30 to 40-minute version of their story. Very powerful. Most Christians around the world have never done it. I've asked. Most Christians around the world have never shared the 30 to 40-minute version of their story with other believers. Maybe their spouse, I hope. Okay. But never with other believers. Very powerful when you know each other from the very beginning at that level. So you're sharing about a bunch of good things from your story, but you're sharing a bunch of hard things from your story. Again, I said it earlier, pretty much every time I hear a man's story, he's got a broken dad story. I had a broken dad story. These 2 other guys that I talked about last week, with the porn problem and just had the marital affair, both bad dad stories. So you know from the very beginning going into it. So as an example, if you don't know those kinds of details about somebody's life, you often don't know the source of the sin. You don't know the source of the anger. You don't know the source of the fear of man. You don't know where that's coming from. So somebody talks about this thing going on in their marriage or at work, you're just guessing. You don't know where it's coming from. Versus, I know that your dad beat you or abused you verbally when you were a teenager, and 15, 20 years later, it's still producing fruit. Bad fruit. It still has roots in your life, roots in your story. How your dad treated you, how he spoke to you, how he never encouraged you. So you have difficulty encouraging your kids because your father never encouraged you. Your father never told you he loved you. So you have difficulty expressing that to others, telling others you love them. Rooted in our stories. Okay? So much of the fruit of our lives is rooted in our backstory. The good fruit and the bad fruit. But we must know where the root system is rooted. That's what DNA does. It's getting to the roots. It's uncovering the roots, discovering the roots. It's getting to the root sources of the thinking and decision making of our lives. And then we try to help each other, encouraging each other, speak truth from the Bible into the broken root systems. Say your relationship with your father does not define you. He did not treat you well, but it does not define you. Jesus defines you. You are new in Christ. You are a new creation. You can now lead your spouse differently. You can now lead your kids differently. You can now overcome porn. You can now make better decisions at work. You can do that because you are new in Christ. You are not the old man. Again, you see how powerful this potentially is? So we get each other stories from the very beginning, and then we just keep pushing deeper.
Can I ask? I'm sorry if you covered it already. My Wi-Fi dropped out, and I had to move rooms. But in terms of like meeting in your small group and in the DNA group, do you meet, say, in a small group at the weekend so that everybody's there, or is it the case that maybe just the wife goes and the dad stays at home, and then the next week the dad goes? And with the DNA group, I mean, where do they meet, which is sort of separate, where they can gather without maybe worrying about their wife in the next room or something like that? Where, just practically, how do you get around those sorts of issues?
Yeah, with our DNA, so all of our small group, a lot of our small group interaction happens in homes, houses, apartments, and you don't have to have a big home to function like this. I work with churches in Romania and other parts of the world that have smallish living spaces. They still function like this. They still live like this, okay? But we do a lot of it, again, is around the table. It's around a meal. It's in the home. That's with the small group, home group, life group, okay? Missional community. DNA, we try to do out in a public space often because it's at nighttime. I told you 8 to 10 p.m. So we're looking for a place where we can grab a bite together, a dessert, a coffee, a tea, because again, we're having these deep conversations, but we also want to enjoy each other. So we went to our favorite chicken place last Wednesday, and one of the guys didn't eat or drink anything. I got an ice cream, and another guy got some chicken strips. Okay. And we enjoyed the ice cream, and we enjoyed the chicken strips, and we talked about porn, and we talked about marital affairs. Wow. At the chicken place. Okay. So could be the chicken place or the coffee shop or the tea place, or you've got these public spaces around. Also, we've got good weather here. So I don't know how it is in Portugal. Andre might also, but we do a lot of stuff outside, honestly. So I've got a portable fire pit. I love fires. Not a pyromaniac, okay, but I love fires. I love being around a fire pit. And so often we DNA around the fire in my driveway, build a nice fire, okay, and it just creates a nice atmosphere to do these things. So again, could be in somebody's yard or at a park or in those public spaces also. So we use a variety. But I think, Michael, you're correct. We try to create some space and some distance there so it is safe. We're not within hearing distance, of kids or spouses or that. So, but again, think family, and you got to create these moments where you enjoy each other. It's so sad that Christians don't do that more. It's so sad that churches don't do that more. Like around a fire or around a meal or around your favorite ice cream. Like so often we don't think like fun, enjoyable family, enjoy life together, encouraging each other. It's supposed to be abundant life, right? I know Mark Jones feels passionately about the abundant life. You got any comments? Quick comment, Mark?
I don't tell anyone, but we're having a blast in MC. You know, this is lots of fun, lots of shared memories. You know, every Christmas we do a quiz. Do you remember who did this back in June? And it's like, oh, there's shared stories. You know, we've got this rich kind of shared experience now. Yeah, it's just great. I knew there was more. I'd encountered it in the global south, and I wanted to find out how do we get that in the UK, and we're just getting a taste of that now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Todd, can I just come back very quickly on you're saying about having a meal, you know, and if we use your example of say Dave's church, and he's got a group of like, you know, 6 men, 6 women and 6 kids, you know, so there's 18 of them. Would you try and find a venue where all 18 of you can sit down around a table, or would it be, you know, just some, or the adults around the table and the kids running around having, you know, mayhem but enjoying themselves? What would you do?
Yeah. So last week we had 28 here. 13 adults, 15 kids, 28 humans. So yes, you use the word mayhem. I like that. Okay. We had some of that. How did we do it? Our space is not big enough, obviously, for 28 or even 20. So we set up the kids outside with a few adults. So the kids came in, got their food, then took the food outside and ate around tables out there with some of the adults. And then some of the adults were inside around the tables inside. So we did that for the first hour and 15, enjoyed it, enjoyed a taco bar. It was easy to prepare, easy to organize. Everybody brought something. Somebody brought meat, somebody brought lettuce, somebody brought tomatoes, somebody brought sour cream. Everybody shared responsibility for the taco bar. Did the inside outside thing, okay, with the adults and the kids. And then for the last hour and 15 minutes, we usually go for about 2.5 hours. We call these our family meal nights. We had a deep discussion with the adults actually about the theme of Jesus around the table and hospitality and welcoming tax collectors and sinners. So that was our theme. That was our discussion for the night with the adults. The kids, again, I told you 15 of them. So the age range was such that we needed to have them in 2 groups, younger ones, older ones. And then we cared for them. We did some games and discussion appropriate for their age to care well for them, because we're discipling them as well. Okay, they're part of the family. We're discipling them. And so, but we rotate these family meal nights every other week. We don't try to do that every week. Okay. Part of the reason is because we want more space in our schedule to be able to do other creative relational things with lost people. And we'll be talking about that more on the next call, actually. Okay. How do we balance these 3 priorities of Bible, family, mission? So we've got to have margin, we've got to have space in our schedule to accomplish all 3. But again, historically, most small groups have functioned heavily on the Bible, a little bit on fellowship and maybe family, and very little mission. But that's not how Jesus did the bulk of his discipling. Okay? 80% actually of Jesus' time with his disciples, 80%, not 50%, 80% was in the context of mission. So we need to wrestle with that. If we're going to make mature disciples, seems like a good percentage of it, at least half, has to be in the context of mission with lost people. So we've got to get back to better balance, better of Bible family mission. So family meal nights every other week, so that those in between weeks we can go to a park, we can do a holiday party, we can do a big barbecue and invite lost coworkers, neighbors, families from our kids' school into those things.
Look, on the family thing, you probably see it. We've got grey hair, and so
I'm getting there. I'm on the way.
we got there a long time ago. So I'm thinking intergenerational, because within our church there aren't many of us with grey hair. Most of them are younger. So if we're going to get through, a few people together, do we meet with other grey-haired people, or do we sit down with the younger family and work it through? What would you say on that?
Intergenerational, please. Please.
Yeah.
The youngers need the olders need the youngers.
Yeah.
Segmenting it into just young families or just university students or just gray hairs, it's not good family.
I think as well that intergenerational, when people are widowed or bereaved, as they get older, they need a different level of support, and it introduces younger people, families that have not had a bereavement. It introduces them to think about, the fact that older people might need something slightly different, whether they're the lost or whether they're in the church family.
Yep. There's so many good things that happen with intergenerational relationships. Again, so many things older people can be encouraged by, with young things going on in the lives of younger people. So many things younger people need to learn from people that have wisdom and experience and stories, years of stories of God's faithfulness and fruitfulness. It needs to be working both directions, even in a DNA. So you can imagine, okay, again, we'll just say the 75-year-old with a couple 30-year-olds, or 60-year-old with a 40-year-old and a 20-year-old. Just some really necessary. It's not just good, it's necessary. It's necessary. So yes, intergenerational, both in the DNAs and in the small groups. Being good family. It's family. So, and again, singles and marrieds, don't segment them out. Like, how are the singles going to learn to have a healthy marriage? By watching healthy marriages. Not by reading about it, not by somebody teaching them about it, by watching healthy marriages. What about parenting? People are like, oh man, the singles. No. In our missional communities, if you're a single, you will be helping take care of the kids. How are you going to learn to be a good parent? How are you going to learn to speak to a 4-year-old? Are you just going to read that in a book? You're just going to get that in a podcast? No. You learn it by being around 3-year-olds and 7-year-olds and teenagers. You spend time with them. You help lead them. You help serve them as a single, and you learn to become a good parent by helping the parent's parent. Intergenerational. Singles, marrieds, with kids, without kids, with lots of kids, or one kid. Just all that. It's what we call the beautiful mess.
Yeah, that's family, isn't it, Todd? That is literally, it is family.
Literally. Yep.
I think we're going to probably have to call a time on this evening. So excellent, just helpful. One of the things just to touch base on before we go is, Todd's actually in the UK in November, and Adam Watson and I have been just talking today about the potential of some time together on the 18th, 19th of November. So the 19th is looking like it's going to be the main day. And Adam's got some, and as Todd has got some contacts with like City to City and the Send UK. So we might do a big day at Westminster Chapel all together. But then open it up on like the Monday night, the 18th, potentially for if you like for some of our commission family to maybe get a meal together and have some time together as well. So just to, if you, particularly you guys, Andre, Peter, you're talking about it, the 19th will be the bulk day, which I think is the better day for you anyway. But if you're there, we may do some stuff on the Monday night as people travel across the country and stuff like that. So yeah, just wanted to get that, and we'll do some emails about that, and then we're due to then have the third of these a week later, Zoom call, which actually be quite a nice follow up from the day together as well. Does that sound okay, Andre? We didn't sort of.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. We're excited about that. We just wanted to basically make sure it was going ahead so that we can book flights and organize ourselves to be there.
Yeah,
really good.
Adam's going to book somewhere at the chapel, so I'll just confirm that and then I'll message you anyway. But yeah, 19th is going to be the main one. And yeah, Todd, thank you so much for
awesome. Yep.
Your time.
Great to be with you. Encouraged that you're wrestling forward as churches and desiring to care well for people and live like family. So can I actually pray that for all of us? Because we need supernatural help to live this way and have the strength and motivation to love well. So Father, thanks for my brothers and sisters there and for all the commissioned churches scattered around UK, scattered around the world. We ask for your help to live faithfully, to live fruitfully for your glory. Pray that you would remind us and encourage us and motivate us with the things that we need to love each other well inside the church and love others well outside the church, to be good family together, as well as on mission daily to love and invite people to you and your kingdom. So again, help my brothers and sisters in the days to come, encourage their hearts, motivate them as they live in their neighborhoods and workplaces and all the places they go and people they spend time with, and give them real clarity and next steps as to how to encourage their churches in these directions. Just that an increasing number of people would just feel your call on their lives to commit and to sacrifice as family, and to work together increasingly on mission to reach the many lost people around them. So, Father, we need you to do that work in our hearts every day. So I pray for all of our churches that you would do that. You would do that in us. So, Father, we love you. Thanks for loving us again today, providing for us again today, protecting us again today. We love you, and we thank you and pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Brilliant. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Excellent time. Yeah, just stimulating, isn't it? So thanks. We'll be back. Hopefully you've got the dates for the next two Zooms, and then that, if you can make the evening of the 18th, day of the 19th up in London, that will be amazing as we just continue this journey serving our churches. So bless you all. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd. Brilliant. Good
Yeah,
time.
I spent a lot of time on those foundational ideas, but I felt like it was important